Hey guys, it's Will. Hopefully you're having a great day today. In this video, we're going to go over the top fastest growing companies that are in AI, data centers. We'll be jumping into a little bit of space tech and some quantum companies here today. Very exciting time in the market. We see some extended push-ups through this aftermarket hours here. You see some green happening. And overall, pretty interesting day. We had some earnings come out. Actually, want to get a full kind of breakdown here on what that looks like. So earnings for this week, we had there was a bunch of people inside of StockMate. They're really looking forward to some of these earnings. We got Super Microcomputer. We had some downside potential here for them, basically targeting about $43 a share for this week's earnings. And then AMD stock, we were looking for some positive earnings today, but they came in really well positioned, but didn't have the best reaction in the stock. So let's talk a little bit there about Super Microcomputer. So it looks like maybe on the low end, we were projecting them to get into, let's see, they were down about 16% here. And we did have some calls running with Super Microcomputer, which is totally fine. But look at that. That's their earnings market. They didn't hold that level. In fact, they continued to sell down. See them down to this previous support at $48. So this is a company that has had a lot of momentum. And we see them get down to this $48 price point. It's a big sell-off. It's down to this previous resistance level. Not necessarily bearish for the stock. It just means that they came in with some earnings recently that I guess was not the most favorable. Let's take a look at what their earnings look like. So there was a few results that came in with their earnings per share was lower than expected. And their revenue came in at $5.7 billion versus what was expected, which was 5.9 basically. And their future guidance was down just a little bit. Now their shares have been up, and we know they're providing for NVIDIA and for xAI, one of the really interesting super microcomputer things. This is powering Grok here, which is the world's largest supercomputer, xAI. And Super Microcomputer builds these towers. They build these housing structures that host a lot of the GPUs. They could be NVIDIA H100s, H200 GPUs. And I think they also work in tandem with AMD as well, if I'm not mistaken. So that's what you got going on. Really great market they're in there. And then as far as their financials, that's where things came in a little shaky there. Revenue was down just a little bit, and we see a big correction here happening. When the markets have pullbacks like we see today a little bit with the tech market, it's important to realize that it's one little step in a greater market overview. It's one pullback in a massive surge of a lot of these companies that we've seen over the last few months or few years. And while we see a pullback there from AMD stock, AMD also came in with really good earnings. They increased their revenue, and they've been really running into some really great industries, working with Starlink as well. And their earnings came in with a bearish reaction to the stock, but their sales beat expectations, and they're also a key player here in the AI market. So really good stuff. Now, what are you guys watching here? I want to know, I'm curious what you guys are following right now in the markets, and if AMD was on your radar today, or if there was another company. We talked about Super Microcomputer as one of them. Hopefully you guys didn't hear me too loud there. And let's see what we got. Benoit here. Hi, what's going on? You got Shanto. Hi, what's going on, Shanto? Marty Clark. Sold my BBAI thinking I'm buying something that dipped. BBAI had a green day and then kind of dipped a little bit after hours there today. We see them have a nice push up recently into that $7.40 price point before today actually pulling back. So we got quite a few charts here. We can just kind of hide all the drawings. We saw them push up from $6 a share recently to on Monday as high as $7.35. And then they kind of pulled down today, pulled down, and they're trying to now break back above that moving average. One thing to note, when we get into a bullish trend though, we start to see maybe a breakout here, previous resistance will act as a support. So if we see them use that $7 price point on BBAI, we're now looking for a bounce. This is the bullish sentiment back up into that $7.50 range, which would indicate more bullish momentum. And we got to watch this $7 price point. We've talked about it a lot, right? We actually have some calls, which are going quite well. But what we got here is, a potential sell down too. If it can't hold that $7 range, we're looking at maybe breaking back down to the $6.50 or $6 range. So really watching that $7 price point. It's a previous support and resistance level. And for it to continue that bullish momentum, we got to see it hold out at $7 a share. So let's see, we got Marty's here. Marty said he sold his BBAI. Boobies in the chats just want to personally thank you for the Big Bear AI calls. Can't wait to hear next what we got going. Awesome. I'm glad it's going well. You're able to make some money. Johnny says, good afternoon, all. Johnny's very consistent with being here in the chats, and I always appreciate seeing him here. You sold half of your BBAI and made a nice return. Good stuff. You're currently watching Symbotic because you saw a robot in a shop. Yeah, that's interesting because they have their robots deployed into Walmart's in the back and Target and Albertsons, and they have their earnings tomorrow after hours, along with IonQ, so some quantum companies. There you got Elf reporting and Joby Aviation. The other company we got reporting tomorrow, I think, is Redwire, which should be interesting as well, as that's a company we follow pretty closely. They recently signed this big contract. It's a $2.6 billion deal, and they're one of 14 prime contractors, and they are in space tech. Now, they signed this deal. Their stock hasn't done much after signing the deal. And if we head over to our space tech watch list, they got their earnings coming up. Today, they were up about 3%. We're looking for them to make this 15% move here. And we'll see. We'll see with Redwire. Then you got Agua says CTM and APLD. Let's jump into it. So as we kind of take a look at AMD and what they're doing, there's a lot of reasons why they could rebound heavily from this pullback today on their earnings. AMD stock is said to be one of the main competitors with NVIDIA and has GPUs that by some estimates are better than NVIDIA's. Why would Starlink choose to send AMD up into space? You got to have really good tech there for them to be the main company considered, and their balance sheet too with AMD. I know that their stock sold off today after hours about 6%, but they're coming in with really good earnings. They're increasing their revenue, and you can see their balance sheet really disciplined. They have over 70 billion in assets with about 13 billion in liabilities. So they're really looking good. And that's kind of how we're going to anticipate AMD, is that they're going to continue to run. I would imagine we see some good stuff with Starlink too. I know that sometimes it feels like we're one of the only people covering it. I see all of our videos here on Starlink partnering with AMD, but I think it's something most people don't realize about AMD. And one of the things that could put them into the top percentile of GPU companies is that they're working with Starlink. I think that's great indication that their GPUs are really good, So anyway, we'll be watching there. We're going to jump into, why don't we just do a full-fledged BBAI analysis real quick, and then we'll jump into APLD and CTM there. Get into some data centers here. So Lee says, hey, Will, holding my BBAI calls for 2027. Did you see my post in StockMate about BBAI and LinkedIn this morning? Hey, let's take a look. Lee is one of our valued StockMate subscribers. I just got off the phone with him not too long ago. Let me refresh the page for you there. Lee, see if we get that update. Where was it that you dropped the update? Here it is, 14 hours ago. Lee came in. This is, he says, I am pleased to share, this is Adam Berenger. I'm pleased to share that I will be attending the 56th Florida Airports Council annual conference in Tampa, Florida on August 4th through 6th. If your airport is looking to have a better customer experience and reduced wait times for United States citizens returning from international trips, please contact me and I can help assist you with a new CBP, Enhanced Passenger Processing, via Big Bear AI, Pangium here. We've implemented at 17 ports in North America and would also be happy to discuss with you biometric air exit/entry and how the Big Beautiful Bill will help secure funding for capital programs and spending with dedicated $670 million plus set aside. We would be happy to assist you for security and biometric upgrades. Now, this is business development over here for direct from Big Bear Repost. Why is that such a important key to their growth? Well, let's jump into it. Lee, first of all, I really appreciate it. I always love the insights, and I really enjoy working with you. And I do want to say that some of the best insights we get, again, guys, you're getting this piece from StockMate. There's also some really good insights in StockMate that are constantly getting published along with our earnings targets, the companies, and all those things. If you want to grab it, it's the second link in the description. And I would love to send you a free t-shirt as well. Get to you anywhere in the world there as well. So when it comes to our daily live trading, it's happening in 10 hours if you want to join us there. We also wanted to cover what was the VeriScan deployments. They said 17 different ports for Big Bear, 17 different ports. So what that means here is secure, efficient traveler authentication. They have this technology, and very aggressively. There's this other thing that I want to go over. Other than inside of TSA, so you go to the airport, they scan you, they have the facial scanner. They're also going direct to airports. So you might notice that inside of that article there from Lee on Big Bear, that they also say would also be happy to discuss with you biometric air exit/entry. Air exit/entry. What does that mean? Well, most likely it's what they're talking about when they say air/entry and exits here, is they're going directly to airlines as well. They're not just going only to the TSA. So we see a rapid expansion, and they got their earnings coming up here on the 11th. They haven't come out with any news in the last week or so, other than the DEF CON AI collaboration. But we did see, again, very significant deployments into these airports. Let's see how many they named here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, give or take. 12 airports they mentioned here. I get a lot of messages from you all saying, hey, Will, you'll send me a message on my Instagram or here on YouTube, and you say, I just saw Big Bear AI, and it's at, what's an airport that's not listed here? SFO. I just saw it at, what's another one that's not mentioned here? I want to say I think it was Austin. Maybe there was somewhere else. There's a couple, there's a few. I think it was Jacksonville maybe, or Fort Lauderdale, something like that. And that they tell me that they see the airports, and I believe it, because look, they got 10 to 12 airports mentioned here, whereas in that article they had mentioned they have over 17 airports. So again, a classic they're expanding fast and they haven't shared it on their company press releases yet, but that we're able to kind of track that development as it takes place. So that's what's going on with Big Bear. Let's take a look at some of the charts and see how maybe we could see some direct movements as a result of some of these upcoming catalysts. So you have the World Cup coming up, which is a big deal. You have the Olympics coming up, which is also a big deal. But on the near term, let's kind of talk about the developments. We've seen, just in the last few months, from when we started covering it in October, it surged to about $10 a share by February. It sold off from $10 a share down to $2, and we've seen it gradually build this market cap. Shot up to 870 and kind of has been consolidating from left to right here, kind of consolidating here as we start to maybe make this approach back up into this $8 a share price point. Now, when it's been now kind of making this trend, we're looking for it to validate the $7 price point, in which if it does, it's a little more, I guess, bullish, hyper bullish potentially, holding above this green line, so this 200-day moving average, which oftentimes in a bullish momentum, you'd see that green line kind of act as a support. In a bearish market, it acts more as a resistance. See that? So bullish, it's going to hold above that green line. Bearish, we're going to see it below. You can kind of see that here too. When it was bearish, it's holding below this green line here. When it's bullish, it's oftentimes acting as a support. And so right now, it's trying to use that green line as a support at $6 a share. Not necessarily only indicator we're looking at, but definitely something to watch as that $7 price point, $7 price point for Big Bear is a key level. Looking for that $7 price point to be validated. If it can't validate it, again, we'd look for a sell down into that $6.50 or $6 range. But really what we'd expect from a positive perspective with the bullish momentum would be back up into that $7.50 range, and then potentially making this run up into these $8 to $9 ranges. Now, the first target to watch closely on the bullish side of things is getting back to that $7.50 range. It did sell down a little bit of the after hours here, and most of the day we did see some sell-offs. So we'll just have to see overall market direction. Now, Zir says, what do we see from the machine over on Mercatus? Let's take a look, and this is actually really exciting. I didn't expect to do this here on the live video, but it's been highly requested and something that I've been really wanting to add for my own use, which is being able to use Grok. And so we actually just recently added Grok to our analysis. So I'm going to do it for BBAI. Would you take a look at it? See how it's not blue anymore? I could switch for a second. You see how it's normally blue with the OpenAI? We actually have Grok enabled here. Grok is pulling relative financials. It's tying the relativity. It's taking all the real-time data that we have available and that it's able to tap into via X or Twitter or whatever it's able to use as a premium model. It's the most premium model. We use Grok 4. We work towards a super heavy max here. And we're getting now a projection based on Grok. So Grok is telling us here that we're seeing potential bullish momentum here over the next day or so. We look at the next month. It's actually fairly bullish. It says part of that is that we got consistent trading volume, historic asset growth here, and over the 3 months, we're expecting a significant increase given the asset's steady performance and their market outlook that they're in. So BBAI, I'm excited to see it. We possibly, right now, it's looking to just kind of hold in that above that $7 range on the bullish side of things, with potential swings below $7. But that's really where we're looking at right now, is up into that $7 to $7.50 range. And so for those of you guys that aren't familiar, the machine, and that we introduced it, I would love to leave a chat for you. Maybe I can pull it up here on YouTube. We did a live video revealing the machine back here. Let me grab the link for you. And by the way, when I look at the analytics of our channel, we are about 50 subscribers away from a quarter of 100,000. 25,000 subscribers incoming. We're on the road to 100,000, and I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to drop that link there to that live video in the chat. And I see Nazir says, Katya, Clayton. Hey, what's going on, Clayton? Johnny's here. We got Marty says, I was thinking to go back down to 650. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the level it's trying to hold, right? It's trying to hold those levels. So we'll see how it goes. It's definitely looking bullish overall, but we're definitely trying to see if we can hold that $7 price point right now. So one of the things I wanted to go over too is APLD. We're going to talk about data centers here in just a minute. But one of the things too with Big Bear AI, before we get there, realize that, you know, markets and how we're in right now, there's some, I'm sure you've heard it quite a bit. A lot of people saying we're going to see a correction. We're going to see a correction. That's always in the conversation. But some of the value creation that we've seen from these companies has been tremendous. And that's why I think, you know, possibly we see them hold these levels. It's really important to have a plan on the near term and that you have a good idea of, a good idea of how you're managing your risk. And also on the long term, you know, looking to add on those dips. So I just sent over a link there, you guys, for that training as we just revealed the machine and launched it. If you want to get an idea of how we're using AI right now for our analysis. Now, when it comes to data centers, let's kind of jump into it. We're over in AI right now. We have some really good outlooks on the data centers as they're powering much of the AI boom right now. But let's take a look at APLD. So APLD has made its run back up into this $15 range. Part of the reason why they've had such a bullish momentum here is just that their trend has held true and that they've signed an over $10 billion contract for their AI data centers. So you see this trend kind of holding true. They're up to this previous resistance at $15 a share. Looks like next level of support now is actually going to be moved up. So previously we were looking for them to validate this $12 range. They did end up validating that $12.50 range and continuing up. So we can actually take that one out of the picture right now, or at least we could leave it there. But you have a previous resistance level at $14 a share. That would be the next level of support for APLD. APLD recently did announce some really good stuff around their data centers. One of the things they just announced actually was the CoreWeave contract, which was a $7 billion deal. And then in their earnings stated that it was actually going to be around 10 or $11 billion. And so they have really good earnings coming in. They focus on building next gen data centers. So they're in that market of AI. They work with point of generation, so wind turbines, solar, and hydroelectric. Now, I see some comments there on CTM. We're going to take a look there. And you got Supermicro Computer, NVIDIA, Dell, Intel are some of the partners they work with over at Applied Digital for building their data centers. And so they recently came in with their earnings this past week. And they came in with some okay earnings. Revenue was up to 38 million, but still down a little bit there quarter over quarter. Their balance sheet, though, came in disciplined with about 2 billion, close to 2 billion in assets, with about 1.2 billion in liabilities. So nothing crazy, actually looking pretty good. We're just kind of monitoring them and looking for them to get up into these. We started covering them really about $1.5 billion market cap. They're almost 4 billion now, but we're kind of looking for them to be a $5 to $10 billion market cap in the long term. In the near term, though, they just kind of pulled up. You could see that they look more on the overbought side on the RSI and the MACD in the near term. And so we got to see if they can hold this $14 price point and establish a new support at this previous resistance, when we're in a hyper bull trend, every previous resistance acts as a support. So right now we have a previous resistance at around $14. Looks like it kind of acted as a support here. We got to see how that holds. And if maybe it could get to a point where that $15 price point is its new support. It's kind of what we're watching there. So we'll be watching. Why are we watching? It's just AI data centers. I mean, it just makes so much sense to see them grow. Now, Booby says CTM hasn't moved up too much here in May. Let's take a look there. CTM stock. Is there anything else on APLD? Let's see. One thing to note about APLD stock before we move on is that they have pretty good institutional interest. They've had increased positions, more of them than decreased. They got BlackRock and Vanguard as well as State Street investing heavily in them. And so just something to consider. You do see that institutional interest holding pretty true for the company there as well. Now, when it comes to CTM stock, we've done some coverage on this company for quite a bit. We've started covering them, I think, around 80 cents a share, somewhere in there. And they are just around $100 million market cap. $100 million market cap is pretty small, but they've also grown from about $70 to $80 million market cap when we started covering them. And they've been pretty consistent in their trend. Last time we were kind of analyzing them, we're looking for this 30% increase. Looks like they did push up as much as 15% and then sold back down. But you do got to kind of urge caution. Their financials look very good. They got a $100 million market cap, again, with over a $100 million contract. So their contracts are bigger than their market cap. However, they haven't had any new contracts recently. But nevertheless, their revenue looks good, around $11 million per quarter. Annual revenues seem to be increasing year over year. And of course, their balance sheet looks good too, with their total assets at $37 million. And then reportedly in a recent article, they had mentioned that they had reduced their debt to below $5 million. So they actually have better financials than what's currently showing on the balance sheet. And so in their next earnings, potentially could see some improvements there. Now, the only issue we had with Castellum, we kind of made a reference here when you have a fundraiser. Let's say you're doing a fundraiser. Harry Styles says CTM is gearing up. And then you got some outlooks there on CTM from a few members here in the chat. What we've looked at for CTM is that it's kind of like your grandma when you do a fundraiser. She's the first person you go to, or maybe it's your, that grandpa or that uncle, and you go talk to them to get your initial fundraising, right? Then you get your fundraising. You're like, oh my gosh, I knew I was going to get that. I got some money from grandma, right? And then now you got to go keep doing the fundraiser. You know what I'm talking about? Some of you guys have done those maybe back in school. Maybe you remember. I don't know. It could be Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, whatever. So what happens is same thing in the stock market. A good example here with CTM is that back in February, they got this $103 million contract, but it's at this previous place of employment from the CEO, which is fine. The CEO is the deal maker who's able to go back to a previous operation of employment and get this Naval Air Systems Command contract for their intelligence and cybersecurity and surveillance. And it's great as they have some federal customers and you see that happen. But now you're saying, okay, can they get more contracts other than the previous employer of the CEO? And we didn't see that happen. So we haven't seen any new contracts. Maybe there's one other contract or two other contracts in the couple $1 million ranges, but nothing big, nothing that really shook us. And so that's the only thing with Castellum is we're looking for more contracts to hit their balance sheet and that they can continue to develop into the cybersecurity space and the AI and machine learning space. So they're in AI and defense. They're in a good market right now. And I think they're doing things right with the financials. We like it. But again, we're just kind of looking for that new contract. That would really give them a good chance to continue this trend, that 30% swing up into about $1.50. Now, of course, what we're eyeing here is the overall trend to continue, seeing them get up into here and a 63% increase up into that $1.80 range, and maybe even up into that $2.27 range there. So if we kind of take a look at the Fibonacci too, I'm just going to drop into it real quick and we can take a look. When we take a look at their Fibonacci, not one that we always do, but sometimes it's a good practice. You go to the top, right? And then we go to the lowest low that we've seen, right? So that would be right here. Then you want to stretch it out to where we could see them recover to. So we would be kind of looking for what would be a really nice recovery would be in that $200 million market cap range, which would probably be up here around $1.87, $1.90. So this looks a little bit crazy. So let me just kind of tell you how this works. The golden ratio here, the 0.618 in this orange here, is supposedly, according to Fibonacci, where you would buy if you were trying to trade it bullish. Now, a perfect trade would be up into this purple. That's like an amazing trade, a 75% swing. A good trade would really be in this pink. It's about a 17% trade. So again, a stop loss probably somewhere around this $1.10 range or $1.05 range. And we have long-term CTM, just to disclose, about an 87-cent average. And then we're looking for, a recovery, $1.50 would be good. Great would be up here, and then amazing would be up here. So just from a technical perspective, not factoring in their really good financials and the market they're in, we're kind of looking for this, 25 to 80% increase in their stock, which I do think is something that could happen for them. They've really had a consistent pattern. And if they did break below what would be maybe $1 a share, there could be a little bit more reason to worry. But what I like about them is they aren't hyped up. There's not a lot of hype articles. There's not a lot of people talking about them. You could see, maybe there's some articles around reducing debt, things like that, but they stay pretty under the radar. And that's why we like them. So we also got Amar says, what do you think about AMDL? AMDL selling off there with AMD stock along with Supermicro Computer today. AMD had really good earnings. They sold down to this previous resistance level at about $1 or $160 here. That's a previous resistance level that I would watch and see if they can bounce it tomorrow, depending on how the market looks. If not, they have this support level down to about $158. But yeah, they're at a previous resistance, which could act as a support there at about 160. And we'd be looking for them to bounce back up to that 170 range. Again, they came in with great financials. It's just a matter of seeing them continue to make the run. And it's a shame that they pull back when they have good financials, but that's what we've seen. We saw that happen entire 2024. They were doubling their revenue and they were selling off from 227 down to $76 a share. And I remember making a ton of videos, like we were just kind of pointing out, all the videos earlier here with Starlink. There's a ton of videos you could see where I'm like, guys, they partnered with Starlink. You got to check this out. And it was just crickets basically with AMD. But then they started to recover from $76. They have recovered tremendously, about 100%, over 100% now. And so they got a support there around $160. Like to see them validate it. That would be the bullish momentum to see them continue that uptrend there. So it's kind of how it looks. I do have some calls on AMD. I also got long-term positions there on AMD. And then also Supermicro Computer even, I got some positions there too. And so they had a really big dip. It's not something you want to see, but it's also, something that is really natural. And again, Supermicro Computer, kind of the same deal. We can pull it back here, but they pulled back to a previous support level or a previous resistance level there at about $49 a share, $48 a share. So they're kind of in a similar position. While they've dipped a lot, the recovery could be a great opportunity for people to buy. We're looking at a recovery of about 25 to 30%. And there wasn't anything shockingly bad about the earnings. Did they come in a little bit low maybe on the revenue? Yeah, sure. But, they're in the hottest industry right now, which is AI and data centers. And, there's a lot of reasons why they would continue to make that run there. So again, they're at a previous resistance there around 47, $48 a share. I would look for them to hold above 46. That would be indicating that they can keep some of their upward momentum. Otherwise, kind of watch there because they could sell down to that $40 range or below if they can't hold there. We also got some quantum stocks we've been covering super in depth, going to conferences, getting better understandings for our investors that we work with. And I'll tell you what, the quantum market as an edge that is related to kind of the feeling of the introduction of GPUs. They are the introduction of what is QPUs. And we see a nice recovery. We're looking for it, about a 21% recovery from this support down here. They ended up making that recovery and more, about 30% over the last 2 or 3 trading days. And now Rigetti's up to $16 a share. So we're going to keep following it. You got Rigetti, whose quantum computing is really on the edge, right? They recently got deployed into Microsoft's Azure, so using them through the cloud. If you go check and take a look at their quantum computer here, you'll notice that they got the signal machine. This is a quantum computer. When you get down to the QPU, which is the quantum processing unit, the superconducting quantum processing unit, there's 2 things that happen, right? First is 3 things really. The first is, one of the issues with quantum computers is being able to store the data. And I see Harry says that Rigetti's doing super well, and you bet the earnings could be great. I love to hear it. Brian says, I feel so bad on Super Microcomputer. Man, don't feel bad. Your money is not you. It's definitely part of the game. See a pullback there, kind of just get into a clear outlook on what your plan is there, short-term or long-term, and reassess the plan, and then, move forward on it. That's what you got to do. And yeah, don't feel bad, man. Again, your money is not you. I never feel like my money goes up or down, that's like a reflection of who I am. Now, I do think that there's, you obviously want to make money, but, don't feel bad. It's going to be all right, man. Super Microcomputer overall is a really great company in the long term. One thing to note that you might not know is they're supplying for XAI. And that's the same thing with AMD, why I became bullish when they were down, is because AMD was providing for Starlink. If I see connections with Elon's companies, I'm like, yo, there's going to be money there. And, Super Microcomputer is providing for XAI. That's not something that you see too many connections, right? This right here, see this XAI Colossus, the world's largest AI supercomputer? Super Microcomputer is providing the towers for their data center. So, there's a lot of reasons here why, you don't get down on yourself about Super Micro. It's just sometimes, the market takes time to adjust. But back to, Rigetti. One of the things is there's 3 things. The first thing is they have to be able to store data, right? The first problem, right, is they take millions of data points and they run it through a quantum computer with AI or CPU, and it spits out an answer. And the data side of that could be millions of data points, right? And so that's where they need to have really good software. And that's where we see them working with Microsoft. They're doing some of the cloud, and you can even kind of get some examples of how to use the quantum computer. They're really going down the software route, which is great. But the other thing is the Microsoft Majorana chip. You guys seen this? The Majorana chip. This is an interesting one. So this chip right here is for a quantum computer. You can see it's by a quantum computer right here. You see that? And it's really interesting because look at this image right here. It looks very similar. It's even got a hole. You see the hole in the top right corner, top left corner. That's a quantum chip that was produced by Microsoft. It looks very, very like a perfect fit, I would say, for this QPU, this empty QPU. So it's possible Rigetti could be working with Microsoft on that. That's kind of speculative. The second thing is they have been selling their quantum computers to different universities, and they have their 9 qubit QPU ready to purchase. So we could see maybe some increased revenues. The second or the third piece with this quantum computer here is going to be that they have a lot of partnerships and that they have a lot of backing, but ultimately they're working on this single qubit gates and 2 qubit gate fidelity, which is improving. And the best way I could explain this is um, you can have a bunch of like qubits or a bunch of microchips, but if they all aren't good, then it's not going to do much for you. But imagine like a garden, right? You have a bunch of tomato plants. You can have a bunch of tomato plants, but if the type of tomato plants or the way they're being gardened produces bad tomatoes, then you don't really have a garden. And so you have to make sure that each tomato plant is good so that you have a good harvest. And so basically, you have to make sure each qubit on the quantum computer is very good and accurate and that they can correct errors when they happen. And that's where their fidelity, their efficiency of their qubits has been improving and becoming 99.9% fidelity and 98.6% fidelity. So quantum computing really on a good track. We see them in a good move here as it's continuing to build. They also got a lot of institutional holders, a lot of increased positions there from BlackRock and Morgan Stanley and State Street. And so when we look at Rigetti from a potential continuation standpoint, they got this support now at about $15.50. But as they're at $16.36, they're trying to make their run up to $19 a share, or even up to previous highs at $21 a share, which would be about let's see what that would be, about a 27 to 30% increase from current levels. So a 30% potential if they get to previous highs. But right now, kind of consolidating and getting rejected at a $17.50 price point. So just watch that $15 level there. That's where you really want to watch. $15 price point is their nearest support. It's a previous resistance. We want to make sure it gets validated there if they're going to continue up. Now you got some calls, John says, on APLD. You're stoked on it. Love it. Congratulations. Ricky G, you think Robinhood stock could pull back more than 10%? What do you think, Ricky? JMJ48, a super microcomputer is known for their rack scale liquid cooling technology. Exactly. Yep, they got some liquid cooling that they could put into data centers. Yeah, there's the AMD dip. Tori Morgan says, great info. Really appreciate it. Awesome, Tori. Thanks for the comments, and I appreciate you for tuning in. So you got a lot of really good quantum companies to watch. Again, we got their earnings coming out this week. Shout out to Lee. Lawrence has had some really good press releases. I got to remind Lawrence, if you're watching this, I love your press releases. They're super helpful. I just added a new notable press releases channel for you to go ahead and drop those in there. And if you guys want to get an idea of these targets here, there's some good targets. Every week we release them along with the earnings when they're happening. Tomorrow we got, I think it's Redwire, and then you got Black Sky later this week. Then we have Ion Q, so Quantum on Wednesday after hours, tomorrow after hours. Uber tomorrow morning. Joby Aviation after hours tomorrow. You got D-Wave, the other quantum computing company, pre-market on Thursday. And then NewScale, some nuclear energy, along with SoundHound and Rocket Lab Thursday afternoon. So that's what we're going to be watching. We've been able to catch some nice moves recently. We did have some calls that we ended up selling early on Black Sky. They got their earnings coming up. Hopefully we didn't make a bad sell there, as that could be a spike or a dip. We'll have to see what that looks like. We had a record-breaking day yesterday on some calls on Big Bear AI. We were up on the portfolio. And if you ever want to see how we trade every morning and get these targets, along with surrounding yourself with other like-minded investors, the second link down below. Mark says, any thoughts on APP? I'm not sure. I haven't covered APP before, Mark. So I'm not sure about that one. Could take a look at it really quick. Let's see, App Lovin'. Well, they got their earnings this week, don't they? Did I just see them? App Lovin' is reporting earnings here. Could have sworn I saw them here. There they are. Wednesday after hours tomorrow. I don't know what they do, so I'm not too sure. But we could definitely do some more analysis on it. Let me do a quick rundown for you. And then I gotta roll here. Gotta hit the gym. See, AppLovin Corp, $127 billion market cap, increasing revenues, balance sheet good. Liability's pretty high there. Liability's pretty high, 1.4 billion. But what do they do? Technology company in Palo Alto. Mobile game publishers. They got a lot of liabilities there for an app and development and tech company. I'm not the biggest on their total liabilities being so high there. Not so good. Like, why not just pay it all down? Go back to zero. The liabilities are that high. Okay, interesting. PE ratio is a little high there too at 68. Usually looking for around 20. And they're kind of at an all-time high or near it, 2025. So, yeah, maybe a slightly more risk-averse stock. I would most likely not invest in, but if there was something specific you found about them, we could definitely jump into it. When it comes to the other one, real quick, I think it was Nalzir says SES. Watch that $1 level. Thanks. You say new financials were out Monday, all AH. So things there to check out despite the drop. You think it's in trend. Okay. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it. Thanks so much. DigitalOcean. No, I'm not familiar with that one, Tori. DigitalOcean. Let's see. DigitalOcean stock. Not familiar. $3 billion market cap. AI and machine learning. Pretty good revenues there. Positive net income. Liability is pretty high though. Those are looking not good. Liabilities wise, they got more than total assets, which sometimes is that is a predecessor there for bankruptcy sometimes there. All right. Yeah, just be careful. PE ratio looks fine. Liabilities are really high though for a tech company. Just keep that in mind. They got their earnings call, I guess. Revenue growth reached up 14% and their revenue's up 100% year over year. So that's really good. Looks like overall the revenue guidance rising. Yeah, I would say the only reason I wouldn't touch them is have caution when you see their balance sheet. They're very leveraged. They got more liabilities than they do assets, which is not good. That you could probably see slower growth as a result, or the valuation right now, it's not excessive, but there's definitely risks around that balance sheet right now. So I would most likely not be invested in them. And Michael Anthony says, did you see PFE big beat that raised the outlook that PE will be lower in a few days? Okay, I didn't see that. That's great. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad that you're able to stay up to date on that stock and things are going well. Safa says, what do you think of super microcomputer price after this week? Well, this is really only for stock mates, but I'll share it with you. We had some targets, so let's take a look. On the bearish side, we were looking at a low of $30. That would be on the very bearish side. On the high of 70, but average, we're looking about $43 downside, or $43 price point. Now, we did see it sell down today, super microcomputer, to what was it, 48, 47.92. So if they hold this level, they can make that bounce at 47, 48. Otherwise, that $43 price point was actually our target for this week. Just keep that in mind. But you get a sneak peek. There you go. Yeah, in StockMate. So yeah, if you guys ever want these targets for the week, things like that, we release them for every day. And I'll send you a free t-shirt anywhere in the world. We have our live trading happening in 10 hours. So if you want to join us there at market open, 6:30 a.m. tomorrow Pacific time, we go live. You get an email with the link every morning, and we go live Monday through Friday. So it's not here on YouTube. It's not public. It's private, something separate. And we have a live trading session where you see my entries and my exits inside of StockMate each morning. Again, it's right here. We're going live 10 hours. And if you want to learn fundamentals, technicals, learn how to invest in the AI stocks, the quantum stocks, the space tech companies, and the companies we like to focus on, again, it's the second link below. How about BBAI? We went over it earlier in this video. I think the general consensus was that we were bullish, but we were watching to see if it can hold that $7 price point. If it can't hold $7, $6.50 would be the bearish target. If we see bullish momentum, we're looking for that $7.50 to $8 range there. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And I appreciate you all. Thanks so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Marty says, I'm buying lifetime StockMate access. Let's go. That's cool, Marty. Look forward to talking to you. Harry says, hey, Will, last week I mentioned to load up on ONDS and it just went up 30%. Let's go, Harry. Appreciate it. Thanks so much, Harry, for sharing that with the community. And, I really am amazed at the consistency, man. You have had some really good comments and some good insights, and, keep it up. And just because, I didn't see it or we didn't take advantage of that move doesn't mean it's not an amazing call out there. I actually would like to take a look at some of those stocks more, just didn't have the time. But that is awesome, man. Congrats. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. I hope that you have a great rest of your day today. If I earned your like button, smash the like button right now. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.